Hello everyone, it's been a long time, but I'm finally here and making another video. In today's video I want to talk about transitions. But you're going, what is a transition? Why do I want to be talking about transitions? Well, I'll get to what a transition is a little bit later on, but why do I want to talk about transitions? Well, this goes back to a few months ago, and one of my community, one of my subscribers, and I subscribe to her channel, Michelle. So Michelle's a brave lady indeed. She's set up her own channel at the same time that she's just getting into videos. And so I've started watching her videos and I'm supporting. And one of the videos, I made a comment saying, it's a good video, but like I was being polite, just cut back on your transitions. And then she went, thanks for the feedback. I'm just really enjoying myself at the moment. And then I thought, yeah, actually, that's really unfair of me. Michelle's only just, well, I say only just, but she's been making them for the last 8 months. And I thought that's probably a bit unfair of me, because at the beginning, yeah, just have fun, explore, find out what works, what doesn't. And so that's what we all do, right? You get into video editing and then you see all of these effects and things that you can add to videos. It's all really exciting stuff. So I watched that, but it sort of made me think about transitions and the good, the bad and the ugly of transitions from my experience. So I just thought I'd share that with you. But as we're talking about the good, the bad and the ugly, I wanted to use the music from the film of the same name. It's one of the most iconic soundtracks of the 20th century, in my opinion. The composer is Ennio Morricone. Was born in 1928 and unfortunately died last year at the age of 91. The soundtrack is absolutely stunning. So throughout this video, I'm going to be playing as much of the music from that film as I can. So it might be slower and you'll hear a little bit more music for parts of it. And you might like that, you might not, but this is my video, so this is what I'm going to make. So I'm going to try and get as much of the music in as possible, and because of that, you'll probably see some adverts on there. I'm hoping I'm not going to get a copyright strike. I have checked this out, and I don't think I will, but you may get some adverts, which I'm not going to apologise for, because they should be earning money off of it, because it's certainly music that I've not paid for. At the end of the video, towards the end of the video, I'm going to tell you what I think are my top 5 transitions that I use, and I'll explain why I use those ones. But I have to say, I'm not a huge lover of transitions, which is a strange thing to be saying considering I'm making this video on transitions, but I'm not a huge fan. I think if you create your videos in such a way, I don't know, maybe not, because if it depends on what the video is about, right? So if we're talking adverts use tons of transitions. They're moving it left, right, there's zooms in and outs and all sorts of stuff, and I think they're trying to distract you in some way because they don't want you to focus too much on the product they're advertising. Whereas if you go to TV and film, there's far fewer, and the ones that they use are the more traditional ones, like the fades, the fade to black, the cross fades. And I suppose from people who don't know what a transition is, the most famous one that you're probably aware of and that you see is, when people are having a dream and you don't know if it's a dream or not, but then you get the wavy lines and then all of a sudden they sort of wake up and go, it was a dream. So transition is just, I should have planned this out a little bit better. So a transition is a way from taking you from one cut through to another cut, and in video editing we use a plugin and we can just place a transition, whether it's a fade or what have you, into the software. But while I'm here, I'm also going to talk about my last 1 or 2 videos, certainly the trailer that I made, because several months back now I made a trailer, and that wasn't really a trailer for my channel, but I'll get onto that later on in the video. The reason I made that was for another reason completely, and I did say when I released that in the description that it was a bit of a red herring. when it comes to a good transition, I'm not talking about a particular transition. What I'm talking about is to the viewer, it shouldn't get in the way. They shouldn't really notice that you're using this transition, and that your film, your video should just flow, no matter what type of transition that you're using. And to that end, I think the key thing about a good transition is that you think about it before you put it in. So look at your cuts and check, are these the right cuts? Are they in the right order? Could I do them in a different way? But then if you think, oh, this is the way that I want it, but it would benefit from a transition, whether it's a movement, a fade, whatever. But just put a load of thought into it. And I've made loads of videos and I've thought, yeah, it does need a transition. I've put it in there. And then later on I'm watching my video going, and I do it all the time, I just look at it and go, I just grimace and go, oh, why did you put that in? So it is all about making sure that you really, really think about it and looking at your clips, looking at your video and thinking, will a transition make it look any better? And I have done a few and I think they've worked. I mean, the one that I did with the drone, I did 2 shots. One was lower to where Loretto was, and then I did a higher level one, and I did a zoom transition out, and that seemed to work really well. But on the whole, I make transitions and I don't think I put enough thought behind the transition, and I think that's the biggest thing for to make a good transition, is make sure you've really, really thought about it. So going back to my red herring of a trailer video, maybe after this video go back and look at it, but within that I put in 20 transitions, and the whole point was that you shouldn't really have noticed that I put any of those in there. I certainly put in a load more transitions than I ordinarily would do, but I just thought I'd put it out there just to test it. And so after this video, yeah, have a look at it and see if you can spot them all. But most of them are very subtle, and when I get to my top 5 you'll see why they are the way that they are. Now, what makes a bad transition? Now, for me, a bad transition is one that I've bought and that I don't need or have not used. I think as video creators, we get caught up on adverts that we end up seeing because of the types of things we're typing into Google, and then they end up on as an advert on YouTube. And you've got all these companies trying to sell you their products for all these plugins and these transitions that will make you a video editing god. And you can get really sucked into it, and why not? Because it's like a kiddie in a sweet shop, right? You see all of these things, oh, that looks amazing, but the way they put it together, again, it's very short. It's like an advert. Again, it goes back to that thing that they're sort of hiding, like what it would look like in reality in your videos. And I thought I'd fallen to this and made loads of mistakes and spent a ton of money on loads of transitions that I didn't need. But I actually went through them, and I have to say I've only got about 3 or 4 packs that I've actually paid for, and in each one of those you do get about 30 or 40 transitions, but I haven't spent too much money. It's other plugins that are not transitions where I've bought something and either not used it or used it once. But on the whole, I feel quite proud. So I think just if you don't get sucked in by the adverts that you see, because that will turn you into a bad video editor. And to some part, again, looking at the free ones that come with your software, just because they're there doesn't mean that they're any good or that you should be using them. So really be cautious about all of these transitions that are available to you that you think might be beneficial. Chances are they're probably not. And it goes back to what I said in terms of the good transitions. It's all about that thought beforehand and thinking, this would look better if I use this particular movement, transition, this fade, because that would help marry the 2 clips together. So don't get sucked in by the adverts. Don't go out there spending loads of money on transitions that will make your videos better. The chances are they won't. And also there are loads of free ones out there, so have a look at the free ones. There's a chap called, if you're Final Cut Pro, just hit the microphone. If you're a Final Cut Pro user, there's a chap on YouTube called Ryan Nangle, does loads of tutorials, and he does sell quite a few products, but he gives away loads of free transitions, and I've got a few of those as well, and they're really good. So Final Cut Pro user, Ryan Nangle, check him out. This expands on what I said previously, in that if you've got 2 cuts, don't think that you have to put a transition between the 2 because you've got 2 cuts. I see so many bad YouTube videos where they just feel you have to have a transition going from one cut to another. You really don't. So please just think about it. The really ugly transitions that I see are these ones that are up where there is no thought. They've got all of these cuts and they're putting them together, and they use movements constantly, one clip to another, and they might not be very long, but you've got this movement. It almost makes you feel sick. You sat there as a viewer watching it, just going, ugh. The screen's just constantly moving. And the worst culprits that I've seen, I'm not going to mention any names, but it seems to be cooking channels. There's some really good cooking channels out there, and they just ruin their videos because they just feel they need to use transitions for every single clip, and it's completely unnecessary. They really don't need to be doing that. But they are the worst and ugliest videos when you have lots of cuts, short clips, and between each one they're going transition. It just looks bloody awful. And I suppose the final point I want to make on this is when you use loads of transitions, if you're trying to get better and you're putting yourself out there, it's a clear sign that you're fairly new to it, or that you don't know what you're doing, or you're lacking that confidence because you've got all of these transitions running through your videos. And I did this when I was getting into my videos. I thought I was amazing, and I used all of these transitions between every single clip, but looking back at them, they look pretty awful. So go back to my previous point on the bad. Just think about it. So I can hear you screaming. So what are your favourite 5, Chris? Well, I'm going to tell you. So I reckon my number 1 is the cross dissolve, and this is the transition where you just dissolve into the next clip. And I've used this on so many videos, and I think it's really nice. It takes the hard edges off of the clips and just takes the viewer into the next clip smoothly. If you look at my previous video, Love Is, I was very conscious how I made that video. I was conscious of this video coming up. So the first third of the video I used cross dissolves, and then I moved into hard cuts, but both the first third and the second third of it was in time with the music. But then as the music got stronger and we moved into the third section, I was using cuts, but it was down to the scene and not the music. And again, that's probably a topic for another video another day. My second favourite transition is the fade to colour, or fade to black. I mean, you can fade to any colour you want, but I pretty much always fade to black. And I use this as almost like a paragraph. Sort of one scene has finished and another one starting. It's good if you're going from one area to another area, or one person to another. Well, like the rules of the paragraph. I mean, it's been years since I was at school, so I can't remember all of the reasons when you start a new paragraph, but I sort of use it in the same way, and I think it's good. And also in TV and film, they use it all of the time. So maybe that could be my number 1, but number 1 and number 2, very, very close. Number 3 is my zoom in and out from Motion VFX. That was a plugin that I bought. It wasn't cheap, but I think it's really high quality. And the thing I love about this particular plugin and the transition is that you can adjust where the zoom in and zoom out portion of your screen is. So you can zoom out from one particular area and zoom into another, and you just move this little cursor on your screen to work out where it is that you want the viewer to focus on as it zooms back in or it zooms out. Getting to 4 and 5, it's getting a little bit harder, and I think my number 4 is the flash or the bloom, and it's the opposite of the black, but it happens like fade to black, but it happens a lot faster. So it's like a camera flash. It's almost like that, you know, when you come out of a tunnel and your eyes are readjusting. If you see something amazing, I just think, yeah, if you want to cut to an amazing scene or a view and you've got the dramatic music going on, I think a flash in those moments works really well. But again, really simple transition. I don't use or tend to not use anything fancy. So the flash stroke bloom is my number 4. I think number 5 on my list would be the slide transition, and this for me, with being a Final Cut Pro user, is a free transition that I got from Ryan Nangle, and it slides to the left and to the right, and I think it's a fabulous, very clean looking transition. So to summarise then, when you're using transitions, use them appropriately when you think they will add something to your video. Don't use them to cover up bad editing. But do think about the cuts and think if adding a transition would make them look better. But again, really think about it. And don't get sucked in by the adverts that you'll see. I promise you, they'll just make you poorer, but they won't necessarily make you a better video editor. And if you do need to buy one, then be in the editing process and get to a point where you think, this would look really good if I had this type of transition, and then look for it then, but don't get sucked into the adverts. Get the free ones. And then my other tip, as I always say in most of my videos, is just have a play, see what works for you, see what doesn't, try them with and without the transitions, but don't just put it in there straight away thinking it's going to automatically make your video better. And then lastly, there are transitions that you can do just using your camera. You don't need to use a plugin or your software to do it. But again, that takes a bit of skill and probably need to look at a few more videos. I mean, that's something I don't do very often either. I'm probably a little bit lazy. Maybe I'll save that for another video another day. But I think this is me done for this one. So take care, stay well, and I'll see you soon. There will be more videos coming. I know I had a break, but I'm going to be making more now. Take care, bye.